Hi, this is Mike Fox from the RDI development team, and the purpose of this video is to illustrate how you can manipulate the Cognos data sources that are present with RDI or Rational Insight to provide reporting off of different data warehouses. Typically, in an RDI installation, you may have two. There's the main data warehouse that would be set up by CLM and has all the data loaded into it by the data collection jobs. So this is one you typically want to be reporting off of. However, you also may have loaded the money that matters sample data into a product repository and then run a data collection job to create a separate warehouse with that money that matters data. So the question then is, how do you set your Cognos server to report off one warehouse or the other? Also, if you have Rational Insight, then you may have a sample data warehouse called sample DW that you can install during the Insight installation. But again, the question is there. How do you manipulate the Cognos data source to be able to report off one or the other? Now, I'll actually be doing this demonstration with Rational Insight rather than RDI. It's really the same thing. I mean, the Cognos administration is identical. It's the same version of Cognos, so you do it exactly the same way with RDI installed. So what we're going to have on the system are three data warehouses. One called just DW, which is set up by CLM with RDI and is empty because I have not run any data collection jobs from CLM products. I have another one called RIDW, which is generally the default name from the RDI side, which was also created by CLM, and that one is loaded with the money that matters data. And then finally, I also have a database called sample DW, which was created by Rational Insight. So I'll show you how you can switch around between the three, and I'll illustrate the switching by running a report which clearly shows different data depending on which data warehouse it's connected to. Like I said, I'll be doing the demo with Insight, so you'll be seeing Rational Insight on the screen instead of Rational Reporting, but it really makes no difference. It's the same thing either way. So let's get started. So to get started, let me bring up a browser that is already connected to the Cognos system, my Rational Insight machine. So let me navigate this one into Cognos administration. Okay, and under the configuration tab, you see the data source connections. Now Insight provides several of these for different types of live data reporting for different products. You wouldn't see these with RDI. However, there is this one called RIDW, which is the data source that's used by the data warehouse. So if we go into that, see there's a number of icons here, and you can manipulate it by doing a set properties and then looking at the connection tab, which gives you its DB2, which is what I'm using here. There's also a connection string. You can test the connection, and we'll be doing that. You can also set permissions, which we won't really get into on this one. Let me cancel this. We can also go in one more, which takes us to the sign-on level. Now the sign-on is a structure that records the credentials that you're going to use. So you can see here, okay, permission is it's used by the everyone group, so everybody can use this sign-on, but you can also edit that if you want to change the user ID or the password that Cognos will use when connecting to the data warehouse to fetch report data. So we'll leave that alone for now, so I'll just cancel out of that. So that's the basic structure and the area that we'll be working in. From this level, there's some other icons. You can also test the connection here just by clicking that. And you see if I run the test, and you can see the test was using the sign-on. I could have alternatively have supplied user credentials. And you can see the test succeeded. So I was able to connect to the data warehouse. So let me close this and then go to my other tab here. And you'll see I have a report called requests per project. And if I run that report. When the report runs, you see it shows me the total number of requests or work items, whatever you want to call them. RTC or COM calls them work items. Insight and the data warehouse terminology typically calls them requests, though requests can include some other things. But you see it's showing right now the data from JKE banking, either quality management or exchange management, just a total number of requests. So it's a really simple report. Now this is obviously connected at this point to the Money That Matters database. So let me just return there. Go back to Cognos administration. Let me go into the properties here. Okay, go to the connections tab. And you see there's a connection string here, and there's this little pencil icon for edit. So I want to edit that. And you'll see here's the database name. So if I just change that to DW, which, as I had said, is an empty warehouse created by COM but never loaded with the by the data collection jobs. Do that. Test. And you'll see the connection succeeded. So hit OK. Okay, so now we're back out. So now if I go back to the Cognos Connection tab and run this report again, you'll see I get an empty chart, just like I expected, because there was no data in that warehouse. So let me back this, come back to Cognos administration, go back in here, connection, edit this again, and now I'm going to change this to sample DW, which should be the Insight sample database. Let me test. And you see that's succeeded, so I have connectivity. Okay, close this. Okay. And now let me go run the report one more time. See, now I have 3 bars from the online auction, Smarter Project, and Classic CD. So you see it's a totally different set of data. And this is the data from the Insight sample database. So you can see we did succeed in changing where the reports are running from. And I haven't touched the report at all. Now one last thing I wanted to show is you can come back here, and it's really easy to create these data sources. So let me just delete RIDW. So I'm just at the top level. I'm just going to go and delete it. So now I have no data warehouse data source anymore. So I'll create a new one, which is this new data source. And I'll give it the name RIDW, which is what it has to be really, because that's where the framework manager model points. Okay, the type, a lot of stuff Cognos supports. We're going to pick DB2. Next, the database name, I'll go also with RIDW. Leave the connection string blank. Now we want to have a sign-on, and it needs to have a password. So the user ID is RPT user. I'll enter the password. Okay, and here I'm going to test the connection before establishing it. Test. Okay, it succeeded. Close. And I can click Finish to finish the wizard. So you see now I have RIDW back again. So if I go back to my Cognos Connection tab and run the report, you see now I'm back to the CLM data, which is where I had pointed it. To wrap this up, I've shown during the brief video how you can simply modify the Cognos data source to point to different warehouses to control what data it is that you'll be using with your reports. Pretty straightforward to do, and it's even easy to totally delete the data source and create a new one. So Thank you very much, and I hope you found this video useful.